Flooding along the Louisiana coast is bad now. Just wait a few years.
Yeah, a new study from NASA warns there could be record flooding, possibly every day or two in some cities in the next decade, and you can blame it all on the moon. Paul Murphy reports.
NASA officials have released a severe warning that the moon is about to shift and cause a highly destructive worldwide tsunami. When the Apollo astronauts came back from the moon, the dust on their spacesuits made their throats hurt, their eyes water. The particles in lunar dust are sharp, abrasive, and unpleasant. But how dangerous are they to humans? During the Apollo 17 mission, all 12 astronauts experienced symptoms of lunar hay fever, as NASA astronaut Harrison Schmitt called it. In some cases, the reactions, like sneezing and stuffy noses, lasted for days. There was a strong odor of burning gunpowder emanating from the spacecraft's dust. The moon missions left an unanswered question about lunar exploration, one that could affect what humans do next in the solar system. Can lunar dust be harmful to human health? In contrast, the moon has another effect on Earth that is far more threatening to all people on the planet than just a select group of astronauts. Massive floods. What exactly is going on with the moon? How will this cause catastrophic floods on Earth? And how will it affect us? In this video, we look at NASA experts' warnings about the devastating flooding that the moon would unleash on Earth. So, without any further delay, let's jump right into the video. The moon is about to wobble. With a radius of about 1,018 miles or 1,740 kilometers, the moon is less than a third as wide as the Earth. There's enough room between the Earth and the moon for 30 planets of Earth's size, with an average distance of 238,855 miles, or 384,400 kilometers. As the Earth takes roughly 365 days to make one revolution around the Sun, the Moon takes only 27 Earth days to complete one revolution around the Earth. The Earth's motion and rotation, however, provide the impression that the Moon completes one orbit of the planet every 29 days. The Moon's apparent motion might be baffling at times. From various vantage points, the shapes resemble largely circles and ovals. However, the motion of these spins and twists is accompanied by something else, a so-called wobbling. Researchers predict that by the middle of the following decade, the phenomena will have increased floods on Earth. The study was released last week. Despite the fact that it may sound scary, this sway has been happening for quite some time. Sea levels rise and fall on a regular oscillation that has been seen by people for millennia. This is just one of several elements, including weather and geography, that can contribute to or mitigate the effects of sea level rise. In an effort to better anticipate the future of floods, the authors of the study published in the peer-reviewed scientific journal Nature Climate Change sought to unravel all of these variables. In addition to the moon's orbit, their findings highlighted a fundamental fact: the oceans are rising as a result of climate change. The paper examined the interplay of several elements that push and pull at ocean levels, showing that rising temperatures due to greenhouse gas emissions are not the main source of greater flood risks. However, the moon wobble seemed to garner disproportionate prominence in media coverage of the study. While the study did warn that higher tides could be on the horizon by the middle of the 2030s due to this wobbling, it also demonstrated that this warning does not apply universally to all coastlines. Predictions of severe floods and tsunamis in 2030. A wobble in the moon's orbit and rising sea levels will cause rapidly increasing high tides along the entire United States coast beginning in the 2030s, ushering in a decade of dramatic increases in flood numbers. This finding, reached by the University of Hawaii's NASA Sea Level Change Science Team, is related to the moon's orbit, which takes 18.6 years to complete, as reported by NASA and published in the journal Nature Climate Change. On average, high tides are lower and low tides are greater over that period, but for half of that time, Earth's normal daily tides are repressed. The inverse is true during the second part of the cycle. NASA states that high tides get higher and low tides get lower. Global sea level rise pushes high tides in only one way: upward. As a result, half of the 18.6-year lunar cycle mitigates the effect of sea level rise on high tides, while the other half exacerbates it. There is no need to worry about severe floods in the United States because the moon is currently in its cycle that amplifies tides. By the time the moon resumes its role in the cycle that causes higher tides, the oceans will have had nearly a decade to rise. An increase in flood incidents is expected along the coasts of the continental United States, Hawaii, and Guam as a result of the higher seas exacerbated by the lunar cycle. Due to long-term geological processes, only the extreme northern beaches, including Alaska's, will be spared for at least another decade. How severe will the floods be? In 2019, more than 600 floods were reported by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Researchers anticipate 3 to 4 times that number by the middle of the 2030s. The moon's gravitational pull, which results in tides in the first place, and climate change were cited by NASA's administrator as the causes of the impending inundation. Coastal lowlands are increasingly threatened and impacted by flooding, and the situation is expected to worsen. The research also found that some floods may occur in waves that continue for longer than a month. In some cases, cities may be flooded on back-to-back days or even once every other day because of the way the moon, sun, and earth line up. Even while the total quantity of flooding won't compare to that of a hurricane, the economic impact of such regular floods can be significant. A company can't stay open if its parking lot is flooded 10 or 15 times a month. Not being able to reach one's workplace can result in one's dismissal. Leaking sewage systems pose a threat to public health. Space agency researchers are hoping that by sharing their findings, communities in danger can take precautions to lessen the impact of a natural disaster. The seashore is becoming increasingly dangerous to inhabit due to rising water levels. Experts have speculated that it may have contributed to the devastating collapse of a Surfside, Florida condominium. What causes this wobble? So where exactly does this wobble come from? Let's start with some context. The gravitational attraction of the moon on a spinning Earth is the primary source of high tides on Earth. Generally speaking, there are 2 high tides each 24-hour period at most beaches. Similarly, the moon completes an orbit around Earth once per month, but on an oblique trajectory. To be more specific, the plane of the moon's orbit around Earth is inclined to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun by about 5 degrees. This causes the apparent motion of the moon's orbit, which goes through a complete cycle every 18.6 years and is sometimes called a nodal cycle. In certain phases, the moon's gravitational pull is at such an angle that it raises one of the day's 2 high tides at the expense of the other. However, this does not indicate that the moon is swaying or that its gravity is changing its effect on the oceans. We were going for a slightly different tone with our emphasis on the nodal cycle. People who want to effectively predict the likelihood of high tide flooding due to climate change will have to work with a lot of noisy data, such as weather patterns, astronomical occurrences, and regional tidal fluctuation. The moon wobble is a part of that cacophony, but it has always had its own unmistakable, unchanging beat. As sea levels rise, it plays a supporting role. During its fastest ascent, it raises the sea level effectively. During its fastest descent, as we're experiencing today, it lowers the sea level. Since it is not actually sea level rise, but rather an oscillation, it is not accounted for in estimates of such rise. High tide levels at a beach may fluctuate by as much as 2 inches due to the wobble during the duration of its lengthy cycle, depending on a number of factors, and in a very general sense, as every place is unique. That probably seems trivial. However, it may become extremely significant under specific conditions. Even though we're currently experiencing a phase of the nodal cycle that seems to go against the trend of rising sea levels, it's still crucial to have a firm grasp on that baseline. Once we have all the facts, we can't afford to relax. Midway through the 2030s is the tipping point when the natural cycle appears to magnify the rate of sea level rise, and dramatic change will ensue. That pretty much wraps this video up, guys. Thanks for watching. So, what are your thoughts on the moon wobble and the rising tides? Share with us in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel with a bell notification if you enjoy watching our content. We upload some awesome stuff here which you will most certainly enjoy. Hit a like on this video and leave a comment below. See you guys in the next one.